Nothing to be thankful for in bed. My wife mocked me at Thanksgiving dinner, humiliating me in front of my colleagues and family. Everyone laughed. I smiled through the pain, but something inside me broke that night. After years of emotional abuse and public ridicule, I finally saw the truth. My marriage was built on betrayal and disrespect. But what my wife never expected was my response. She thought I'd continue taking her insults like always. Instead, I chose a path that would shock her to her core and transform me into the man I was always meant to be. This is how I reclaimed my dignity after my cheating wife pushed me too far. My name is Thomas Barnett. I'm 42 years old, and I'm an associate professor of history at Eastlake University. For 12 years, I've been married to Melissa, who works as a pharmaceutical sales representative. We met at a faculty mixer. She was there with a friend who worked in administration. It was one of those across-the-room moments you hear about. We built what I thought was a good life. A colonial-style house in a quiet neighborhood. Summer vacations in Maine, hosting dinners for my colleagues. No kids. We had always prioritized our careers, deciding to wait for the right time that somehow never came. That Thanksgiving changed everything. I had been working tirelessly toward tenure, juggling teaching responsibilities, research, and committee work. The committee was meeting in December to decide my future at the university. After 7 years of grinding, publishing in top journals, and becoming a fixture in my department, I was cautiously optimistic. We were hosting dinner that year. Melissa's parents, my brother Craig and his wife, and a few close friends from the university. I had spent the morning helping Melissa prepare, though she micromanaged every task I attempted, eventually shooing me away to just set the table properly. I retreated to my study to review student papers until guests arrived. Dinner had been going well. The turkey wasn't dry, the conversation flowed, and I was enjoying talking with Dr. Phillips, the department chair, about my latest research project. His presence at our Thanksgiving was strategic. Melissa had insisted we invite him, knowing his vote on the tenure committee would be crucial. That's when it happened. "Another glass of wine, Thomas?" Dr. Phillips asked, holding up the bottle. Before I could answer, Melissa's voice cut across the table, unnaturally loud. "Oh, come on. You guys should be thankful. At least you have something exciting going on." She gestured broadly toward Dr. Phillips and Craig. "I can't say the same for what happens in our bedroom. Nothing to be thankful for in bed." My wife joked at Thanksgiving, laughing with our guests. I set down my drink, met her eyes, and smirked. The smirk was automatic, a defense mechanism. Inside, I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. Everyone heard it. Dr. Phillips coughed awkwardly into his napkin. My brother suddenly became very interested in his mashed potatoes. His wife gave me a look of pity that made everything worse. Someone changed the subject, but the damage was done. My humiliation was complete, served up alongside the cranberry sauce. As the conversation stumbled forward, I sat there wondering how many years of my life I had wasted with a woman who clearly had no respect for me. What hurt most wasn't the betrayal of intimacy. It was the casual cruelty of it, tossed out for a cheap laugh. And as I looked at her continuing to chat animatedly, not a trace of regret on her face, I realized with crystal clarity, this wasn't a one-time mistake. This was who she was. This was our marriage. That night, something broke inside me, but something else awakened. After the last guest left, our house fell into a strange silence, the kind that roars in your ears. The dishwasher hummed in the background as I mechanically loaded plates, trying to process what had happened. Melissa breezed into the kitchen, humming to herself, wine glass in hand. She seemed completely unbothered, as if she hadn't just shattered my dignity in front of my department chair, the man who held my career in his hands. "That went well," she said, leaning against the counter. "I think Dr. Phillips really enjoyed himself." I stopped loading the dishwasher and stared at her. "Are you serious right now?" "What?" She raised an eyebrow, genuinely confused. "That comment you made. About our bedroom life. In front of everyone." She rolled her eyes and took a sip of wine. "Oh, come on, Thomas. It was just a joke. Nobody cared." "I cared." My voice was quiet but firm. "You humiliated me in front of my colleagues, my family." "You're being oversensitive," she sighed. "This is why we have issues in the first place. You overthink everything." There was the classic deflection, the way she twisted things to make me the problem. I'd spent years convincing myself this was normal, that all marriages had these moments of casual cruelty disguised as humor. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw a stranger. When did she become this person? Or had she always been this way, and I've been too blind to see it? This isn't the first time, I said. You've made comments like this before. At the faculty picnic last summer. At Craig's birthday. Always in public. Always at my expense. You're keeping score now? That's mature. She set her glass down with a sharp clink. Maybe if you weren't so boring in bed, I wouldn't have anything to joke about. Her words hit like a slap. The trust issues that had been simmering beneath the surface of our marriage suddenly boiled over. This wasn't just about tonight's humiliation. This was about years of small betrayals, of emotional infidelity against the commitment we'd made to respect each other. I walked past her without another word and climbed the stairs to our bedroom. Through the bathroom door, I heard her on the phone, probably calling her friend Kate to complain about my overreaction. As I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, a strange calm settled over me. Tomorrow wouldn't be business as usual. I couldn't go back to pretending. Something had to change, and that something was me. I woke before sunrise, my mind surprisingly clear. Melissa's soft snores filled our bedroom. She slept peacefully, untroubled by the relationship crisis she had precipitated. I slipped out of bed without waking her. In the kitchen, I didn't make coffee or check my email as I usually would. I grabbed my keys, wallet, and phone, then headed out into the crisp November morning. My breath clouded in front of me as I walked to my car. 20 minutes later, I pulled into the parking lot of Ironworks Gym. I'd driven past it hundreds of times on my way to campus, but had never gone inside. The membership fee had always seemed an unnecessary expense, especially with the faculty gym available. But the faculty gym meant running into colleagues, and today I needed anonymity. The front desk guy looked up as I entered. "Morning. Can I help you?" "I'd like to sign up," I said, surprising myself with the certainty in my voice. While filling out paperwork, I caught my reflection in the mirrored wall. When had I gotten so soft? Not just physically. There was a pliability to my expression, a man accustomed to bending rather than standing firm. "Professor type, right?" asked Jim, the owner, as he showed me around. "Let me guess. History or literature?" "History," I admitted. "How'd you know?" He chuckled. The elbow patches gave it away. "No offense." I glanced down at my jacket. Melissa had bought it for me last Christmas, saying it made me look appropriately academic. The realization hit me. I'd been dressing for the role she wanted me to play, not for myself. The workout was brutal. Years of sitting behind desks and lecterns had taken their toll. But with each burning rep, each gasping minute on the treadmill, I felt something shift inside me. This pain was honest, earned. It was mine. Afterward, sweaty and exhausted, I stopped at a barber shop I'd never visited before. The old Italian barber looked at me appraisingly. "What'll it be?" For years, I'd worn my hair the same way. What Melissa called distinguished but was really just safe, expected. "Something different," I said. "Shorter on the sides. More modern." As clumps of brown hair fell around me, I felt lighter. The man in the mirror gradually transformed. Sharper jawline exposed, stronger features emerging from behind the soft professor facade. Back home, Melissa was in the kitchen, still in her robe, scrolling through her phone when I walked in. She glanced up, then did a double take. "What happened to your hair?" "I got a cut." "I can see that. Why didn't you go to Steven? You know he understands your hair type." I opened the refrigerator, grabbed a bottle of water. Felt like a change. Her eyes narrowed. "And the gym bag? Since when do you work out?" "Since today," I said simply. I could see her processing this information, trying to fit it into her understanding of me. Predictable Thomas, reliable Thomas, controllable Thomas. But that man had begun to fade away last night, and I had no intention of bringing him back. "Are you still upset about last night? Is this some kind of, I don't know, rebellion?" I met her eyes. "No, Melissa. This is just me, making some changes." The confusion on her face would have been comical if it weren't so revealing. She truly didn't recognize the person standing in front of her, because she'd never really seen me at all. The following Monday, I walked into my department with my head held higher. The new haircut and a weekend of intense workouts hadn't transformed me overnight, but something fundamental had shifted inside me. "Whoa, look who got a makeover," said Denise, our department secretary. "Hot date with a missus." Just felt like a change, I replied, collecting my mail. Well, it's about time you spice things up, she grinned. You were starting to blend in with the bookshelves. I headed to my office, noticing a few curious glances from colleagues. Inside, I found Emma Parker, my research assistant, organizing articles for our upcoming publication. Professor Barnett, I almost didn't recognize you, she said, eyes widening. The new look suits you. Emma was brilliant, a doctoral candidate whose sharp mind and fresh perspectives had breathed new life into my research. We'd been working closely for months on a paper about obscure political movements in early American settlements. In another life, I might have noticed how her eyes lit up when discussing historical minutiae, or how she brought coffee exactly how I liked it without being asked. Thanks, I said, setting down my bag. Any updates on the committee response? Yes. Harvard Review wants to fast-track our article. They're calling it groundbreaking. Emma beamed. This could be huge for your tenure case. For the first time in days, I felt a genuine smile spread across my face. That's fantastic news. We spent the morning diving into revisions, our usual academic rapport now tinged with something different. Respect, yes, but also a new awareness of each other as people, not just colleagues. Around noon, my phone buzzed with a text from Melissa. Dinner with the Wilsons tonight. Don't forget, the Wilsons. Melissa's friends from her pharmaceutical company. The husband who talked about golf scores all night, while the wife bragged about their timeshare in Aspen. A month ago, I would have dutifully cleared my schedule. I texted back, can't make it. Deadline for Harvard Review. Her response was immediate. Seriously? This dinner has been planned for weeks. Sorry. This publication is make or break for tenure. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, fine. I'll tell them you're buried in your dusty books again. I pulled my phone away without responding. The old Thomas would have felt guilty, would have caved. The new Thomas had more important priorities than playing the dutiful husband at another mind-numbing dinner party. Everything okay? Emma asked, noticing my expression. Yeah, just dodging a bullet, I replied. Hey, want to grab lunch? I could use your input on the conclusion section. We ended up at a small cafe near campus, far from my usual faculty dining hall. The conversation flowed easily from academic topics to books, films, and travel dreams. For the first time in years, I was having a genuinely stimulating conversation with someone who valued my thoughts. When my phone buzzed again with more text from Melissa, I turned it face down on the table without checking. This paper, this moment, this fresh start, they mattered more than her emotional manipulation and trust issues. I was done being at her beck and call while she bulldozed my dignity. I returned home late that evening to find Melissa waiting in the living room, a glass of wine in hand and storm clouds in her eyes. How was your deadline? She asked, voice dripping with sarcasm. Productive, I replied, setting down my laptop bag. We made good progress. We. She raised an eyebrow. You and your little research assistant. I paused, surprised by her tone. Emma. Yes. Emma, she repeated, swirling her wine. The one who looks at you like you hung the moon. She's a doctoral candidate who respects my work, I said evenly. Something you might try sometime. Her eyes widened. A month ago, I would never have spoken to her that way. Melissa was used to me backing down, smoothing things over. The Wilsons asked about you, she said, changing tactics. Carol's husband just made partner at his law firm. They bought a vacation home in Vermont. Good for them. You could at least pretend to care about our social obligations. Our social obligations? Or yours? I grabbed a bottle of water from the fridge. When was the last time we spent time with my friends? She scoffed. Your idea of a social gathering is arguing about medieval tax systems with other history nerds. And your idea is parading me around like a show pony while you made jokes at my expense, I countered. Melissa set her glass down hard enough that wine sloshed over the rim. What's gotten into you lately? The hair, the gym, the attitude. Are you having some kind of midlife crisis? Maybe I'm just tired of settling. Settling. Her voice rose. Is that what our marriage is to you? Settling. I looked at her. Really looked at her. The woman I'd married had been ambitious. Yes, but also kind, supportive. Somewhere along the way, she transformed into someone who saw me as an accessory, not a partner. I don't know what our marriage is anymore, I said honestly, but I do know I deserve basic respect. This is about Thanksgiving, isn't it? You're still hung up on one little joke. It wasn't little, and it wasn't just once, I said. It was the last straw. Melissa stood, crossing her arms. So what now? You're going to reinvent yourself? Trade me in for a younger model? Is that the plan? There's no plan, I replied, suddenly tired. I'm just making changes I should have made a long time ago. As I headed upstairs, I heard her phone ring. Through the bedroom door, I caught fragments. Acting weird. I don't know what's gotten into him. Marriage problems. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, realizing something profound. I no longer cared what Melissa thought. For years, her opinion had been my compass. Now I was finding my own true north. 2 weeks into my transformation, the changes were becoming more noticeable. My clothes fit differently, my posture had improved, and colleagues were responding to me with newfound respect. But the most significant change was internal. I was remembering who I used to be before I'd allowed my marriage to shrink me. I was reviewing lecture notes in my office when there was a knock at the door. Got a minute? Dr. Phillips stood in the doorway, looking uncharacteristically hesitant. Of course, I said, gesturing to the chair across from my desk. He settled in, studying me. I've been meaning to speak with you since Thanksgiving. My stomach tightened. Here it was, the fallout from Melissa's joke. I braced myself for awkward sympathy, or, worse, professional consequences. I want to apologize, he said, surprising me. You? For what? He sighed, looking uncomfortable. For not saying something that night. Your wife's comment was inappropriate, and the way everyone just let it slide, well, it wasn't right. I was speechless. Of all the scenarios I'd imagined, this wasn't one of them. My first wife was like that, he continued. Belittling, undermining. I know what it does to a man over time. I appreciate that, I said finally. But it's not your responsibility. Maybe not. But I've noticed the changes you've been making. It takes courage to reset the boundaries in a relationship. Not many manage it. He leaned forward. The tenure committee meets next week. Just so you know, your Harvard review acceptance made quite an impression. After he left, I sat back, processing this unexpected turn. For years, I'd compartmentalized my personal and professional lives, believing no one noticed or cared about my marriage issues. Clearly, I'd been wrong. That evening, Emma and I were working late in the department library when my phone rang. Melissa's name flashed on the screen. I silenced it. Don't need to get that, Emma asked. It can wait, I said, returning to the document we were analyzing. She studied me for a moment. You know, when I first started working with you, I was intimidated. Your reputation in the department was formidable. Really? I always thought people saw me as a pushover. She shook her head. Not academically. Your work has always commanded respect. But lately, there's something different. You seem more present. My phone buzzed again, a text this time. Where are you? Dinner's getting cold. I put the phone away without responding. For the first time in our marriage, Melissa was experiencing the uncertainty of not knowing where I was or what I was doing. The tables had turned, and it felt like justice. I'm more present, I told Emma. I'm finally showing up for my own life. Her smile made something warm bloom in my chest, something I hadn't felt in a very long time. When I finally arrived home that night, the house was eerily quiet. Melissa's car was in the driveway, but no lights were on downstairs. I found her in our bedroom, sitting on the edge of the bed, scrolling through her phone. You didn't answer my calls, she said without looking up. I was working with Emma. Her voice was casual, but I caught the edge. Yes, actually. We're finalizing the Harvard paper. She set her phone down and finally looked at me. Something had changed in her expression. The irritation and confusion had been replaced by calculation. I made your favorite dinner, she said. It's in the fridge if you're hungry. I blinked, surprised by this sudden shift. Melissa hadn't cooked for me in months, maybe longer. Thanks, I said cautiously. I already ate. With her. At my desk. Alone. She stood up and approached me, placing her hand on my chest. You've been working so hard lately. I was thinking we could use a break. Maybe that weekend trip to the vineyards we've been putting off. I gently removed her hand. I have the tenure committee next week. I can't take off right now. For a moment, her mask slipped. Frustration flashed across her face before she composed herself again. I'm worried about us, Thomas, she said, her voice softening. You've been so distant lately. Ever since Thanksgiving. So you do remember Thanksgiving? She sighed dramatically. Are you ever going to let that go? It was one stupid comment. One of many, I corrected. And you still don't get it. Then explain it to me, she pleaded, taking my hands. Help me understand what's going on with you. 5 weeks ago, this approach would have worked. I would have melted at her apparent willingness to listen, would have convinced myself things could change. But now I recognize a tactic. This wasn't genuine concern, it was damage control. I'm tired, Melissa, I said, disengaging from her grip. We can talk tomorrow. As I headed to the bathroom, I caught sight of something on her nightstand, a book titled, Saving Your Marriage, Rekindling the Flame. The irony wasn't lost on me. After years of neglect and casual cruelty, she was scrambling to preserve what we had only when she sensed it slipping away. That night, lying in bed beside her, I felt more alone than I had in years. Yet paradoxically, more at peace. The emotional distance between us had become a physical reality, with her sleeping form just inches away, feeling like it was on the other side of an unbridgeable canyon. My phone lit up with a text. Emma, just heard from Harvard. They want us to present at the symposium next month. Congrats, Professor. I smiled in the darkness. While one chapter of my life was ending, another was just beginning to unfold. The following weekend, I returned from my morning workout to find Melissa in the kitchen wearing an apron, surrounded by grocery bags. The aroma of baking filled the house. What's all this? I asked, setting down my gym bag. Surprise, she said with a smile I hadn't seen in years. I'm making your mother's cinnamon rolls, from scratch. Remember how much you loved them when we visited her last Christmas? I did remember, though I was surprised she did. Melissa had always claimed my mother's recipes were too quaint for her sophisticated palate. The tenure committee's on Monday, she continued, measuring flour. I thought you could use your favorite comfort food. Your father called yesterday, too. He's wishing you luck. This was new territory. In 12 years of marriage, Melissa had never taken an interest in my family traditions or gone out of her way to make me feel supported before a professional milestone. Thank you, I said cautiously. She wiped her hands on the apron and approached me. I've been thinking a lot about us, Thomas. About what you said regarding respect. She placed her hand on my chest. I know I've made mistakes. That comment at Thanksgiving was inexcusable. Her admission caught me off guard. In all our years together, Melissa had never acknowledged when she'd hurt me. I miss us, she whispered, leaning closer. Remember how we used to be? Before all the pressure of tenure and work came between us. For a moment, I felt a faint echo of what we once had. Before the casual cruelty, before the betrayal of trust, before our marriage problems became too obvious to ignore. She must have sensed my hesitation because she pulled back slightly. I've booked us a weekend at that vineyard in Sonoma, for after your committee meeting, to celebrate your tenure and our fresh start. The old Thomas would have been moved by this grand gesture, would have seen it as evidence of change. But the new Thomas recognized it for what it was, too little, too late. Emma and I are presenting at Harvard that weekend, I said gently. Her expression hardened briefly before she composed herself. Surely you can reschedule. This is about saving our marriage, Thomas. Is it? I asked quietly. Or is it about getting things back to the way they were, when I accepted whatever treatment you dished out? That's not fair, she protested. I'm trying here. Yes, now you're trying. After I stopped accepting the disrespect. After I started changing. After I stopped being convenient. She stepped back, dropping the loving wife act. So it is about her, she said coldly. Your little assistant with the schoolgirl crush. No, I said firmly. This is about me. About what I deserve in a relationship. And I don't deserve a second chance. Her eyes filled with tears, whether genuine or strategic. I couldn't tell anymore. Everyone deserves a second chance, I said. But this would be chance number 100. At some point, I had to realize nothing was going to change. The timer dinged. Melissa turned away to check the oven, her shoulders rigid. As I watched her mechanical movements, I realized something profound. I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, no longing for what might have been. The emotional affair I'd been having was with the person I was becoming, the person I should have been all along. Monday morning arrived with a strange sense of inevitability. As I dressed for the tenure committee meeting, Melissa hovered in the bedroom doorway. Your blue tie would look better, she suggested, watching me adjust the burgundy one I'd chosen. "This one was a gift from Dr. Phillips," I replied. It seemed appropriate. She nodded, then approached with a small velvet box. "I got you something. For good luck." Inside was a pair of silver cufflinks engraved with my initials. An expensive, thoughtful gift that would have meant the world to me just months ago. Now it felt like another calculated move in a game I was no longer playing. "Thank you," I said, slipping them into my shirt cuffs. "They're very nice." Her eyes searched my face for more enthusiasm, but I had none to give. The distance between us had grown too vast to bridge with material gestures. "I'll be home early to celebrate," she said. "I've ordered champagne." I nodded non-committally and gathered my papers. The tenure committee meeting went exactly as Dr. Phillips had predicted. My research record, teaching evaluations, and recent Harvard acceptance carried the day. By noon, I was officially a tenure professor at Eastlake University. As colleagues congratulated me, Emma appeared with a small wrapped package. "For your achievement," she said with a genuine smile that reached her eyes. It was a vintage fountain pen in a simple wooden box. Not expensive, but perfectly aligned with my passion for historical artifacts. The thoughtfulness of it, how well she knew me, made my chest tighten. I returned home in the late afternoon to find Melissa waiting with champagne and news of her own. "I've been offered a director position," she announced as I walked through the door. "Better salary, more prestige, but it would mean relocating to Boston." I set my briefcase down slowly. "Boston? It's perfect timing," she continued excitedly. "With your tenure secured, you could easily transfer to Harvard or Boston University. Think of the opportunities for both of us. A fresh start, away from all the issues we've been having." Her words hung in the air between us. This wasn't just a job offer. It was her solution to our marriage problems. A geographical cure for a fundamentally broken relationship. "I'm not moving to Boston," I said quietly. Her smile faltered. "What do you mean? This is an incredible opportunity. For you, perhaps. But my life is here now. My career, my research, my—" "Your assistant?" She cut in, her voice suddenly cold. "My future," I corrected. "The future I've built after finally recognizing what I deserve. And I'm not part of that future." Her eyes filled with tears that, for once, seemed genuine. I looked at this woman I'd spent 12 years with, truly looked at her, and felt only a distant sadness for what might have been. "I don't think I've been part of your future for a very long time," I said. "Not as a partner. Only as an accessory." She slammed her glass down, champagne sloshing onto the table. "So that's it. One humiliating comment, and you're throwing away 12 years. No, Melissa. Thousands of humiliating comments. Years of disrespect. A lifetime of settling for less than I deserve. That's what I'm walking away from." 1 year later, I stood in my new office at Eastlake University, arranging books on the shelves. The corner office with large windows overlooking the campus quad was one of the perks of being a tenured professor and newly appointed department chair. The divorce had been finalized 6 months ago. Melissa fought it initially, cycling through anger, bargaining, and finally acceptance. She took the Boston job and sold our house, dividing our assets with surprising fairness once she realized I wouldn't change my mind. I heard a knock and turned to see Emma in the doorway, her doctoral robes draped over her arm. "Ready for graduation, Dr. Parker?" I asked with a smile. "Almost can't believe it's real," she said, entering the office. "The Harvard Review is publishing my dissertation next month. They'd be fools not to," I replied, feeling a surge of pride in her accomplishments. Our relationship had evolved gradually after my separation. What began as mutual respect had grown into friendship, and eventually something deeper. We'd been careful to maintain professional boundaries until she completed her doctorate, aware of academic politics and the value of her reputation. "Have you heard from Melissa?" she asked, helping me arrange books. "She sent an email last week. She's engaged her company's CEO. Are you okay with that?" Emma studied my face carefully. I considered the question honestly. "Yes. I hope she finds what she's looking for." And I meant it. The anger that once defined my feelings toward Melissa had faded, replaced by a detached understanding. We had been wrong for each other in fundamental ways, but it had taken that public humiliation at Thanksgiving to make me see it. As we prepared to leave for the graduation ceremony, I paused to look around my office, at the framed Harvard Review article, the tenure certificate, the photograph of Emma and me at the symposium where we'd first acknowledged our feelings for each other. You know, I said, a year ago I couldn't have imagined being this content. Because of your career success? She asked. Partly, but mostly because I finally understood what self-respect feels like. She smiled, taking my hand. The hardest lesson is learning what you deserve. Walking across campus together, I reflected on the journey that had brought me here. That humiliating Thanksgiving comment had been the most painful gift I'd ever received, the catalyst that forced me to recognize my worth and rebuild a life that honored it. Sometimes the end of one story is necessary for a better one to begin.